Game over. Kenyans, please prepare yourselves for a caretaker government. Oh yes, and that is not a joke. It is not fake news. It is not an exaggeration. Stay with me and I will explain in great detail so that at the end of my show today, you will be in total agreement with what I'm saying. You know, I don't like mysteries. I don't. When I come across a mystery, I will do everything in my power to solve that mystery. And I will tell you the latest mystery which has really been disturbing me. According to impeccable sources, actually multiple sources, I came to learn about a week ago that things within the inner circle of President William Samoei Ruto are not good. There is so much panic. People are so worried. Indeed, the situation cannot be described adequately. Yeah, but it is total chaos. People even transferring funds out of the country, etc., etc. And of course, the obvious question is why? Indeed, if you look at the behavior of those who are close to the president, everything looks okay. If you observe carefully what President Ruto is doing, is behaving like he's going to be around for a long time and is preparing for 2027. So, to those who are naive, to those who don't understand politics, to those who don't understand this life, yeah, they drink in that and they take that as evidence. Chris, hizo story zako ni za jaba. Ruto is going to survive until 2027. Nothing can stop him. He is solidly in control. In fact, now with the Raila, yeah, propping up his government, just get used to Ruto as president. Yeah, upunguze stress. That is what people are saying. Well, appearances can be very deceiving. Have you ever been in a position or in a situation where your neighbor appears to be doing so well? Is driving flashy cars, is dressed very well, everything looks okay, and you assume everything is okay. However, one day you discover when you come back from work that auctioneers came and swept everything in his house. All his cars gone, everything gone. And then you say, Allah, how did this happen? Appearances can be very deceiving. And you know, with politicians, it is even 100 times worse. Because politicians will never show you the true situation. Never ever. Yeah, they're liars. And always they'll portray a fictional image, very far from reality. So this is what it is. And maybe this should be a sensitive weekly intelligence briefings. Because the information I'm about to give you is more than explosive. Okay? Let's get started. Now, there is a problem. And this is the problem. Okay? For you to be president of a country, there are two sources of support that are very important. Okay? One is the public, the people in the country. Very important for you to have at least enough support to maintain your regime in power. Okay? I think this is something which maybe President Ruto was not aware of. Yeah? But that is one source of support that is critical to the survival of a regime anywhere in the world. But in Africa, there is another source of support that is much more important than the people of the country. Can you guess what it is? As you figure that one out, Thomas Sankara was a very effective visionary leader of a country called Burkina Faso. he had 101% support from his people because of the kind of president he was and what he was doing for his people. However, this second source of support was very much against Thomas Sankara. Did he stay in power? No, he didn't. Something happened and he was out of power, and this second source of support got their way. And I can give you many other examples all over the world. And in many cases, especially these days, what those foreign powers do is that they organize for that person to be out of power but still remain on the planet. That's what happens mostly these days. And you even know the organizations which specialize on that one. I'm sure by now you've already guessed. Powerful foreign forces. Now you'll have noticed in recent times the frequent foreign trips of William Samoei Ruto have very abruptly and very suddenly stopped. I know there's one in the works to go all the way to China. But that is another part, another political divide, if you like, in these powerful foreign forces. I'm sure you get my drift. Now, to cut to the chase, the reason why Ruto has fallen out of favor with these powerful foreign forces has to do with two very serious blunders the Kenyan government has made in recent times. This relationship with the rebel movement in Sudan, the RSF, they were even allowed to launch an interim government ban in the capital of Kenya, Nairobi. That one has caused a lot of jitters in the international community. Okay? We have even had stories in mainstream media that arms to that rebel group are passing through Mombasa port in Kenya. Okay? We know all that. And then there's also the involvement of Kenya in the current crisis in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Yeah, involving the force calling itself the M23. What has happened is that many powerful countries in the world are keeping the Kenyan government at arm's length simply because of those two major hotspots in the world currently. But there are also other major forces in the world who are affected by what is happening there. Now let me just go deeper. I'm sure you're going to understand. You see what happened when Ruto came into power. He received support from some foreign sources to do what he did in those two places. However, things in the world have changed dramatically. And those people who supported Ruto at that time are now no longer calling the shots. And the other side, what they're most interested in, is resolving the crisis in those particular two hotspots. And of course the obstacle, or rather one of the obstacles for them to do that, is the country called Kenya, President Ruto, and what he has been doing. I'm sure most of us understand me totally. Now that is the thing which has caused panic within the Ruto inner circle. And to make matters worse, you know, they would hesitate if Ruto is another Thomas Sankara with a lot of support within the country. But we know that one he does not have. Okay? And now maybe we can understand why it has been so important for Ruto to go to Mount Kenya, to travel to other parts of the country, speak at the top of vehicles, and try and portray the image that he is popular countrywide, or that he has some support countrywide. Now that one makes perfect sense. The truth is, those in the Ruto inner circle already know that they're fighting a losing battle. Most of them know. The really powerful ones. And now it also makes perfect sense why we have been hearing stories of some top UDA politicians establishing themselves, establishing a residence outside the country, moving their families outside the country. Now all that now makes perfect sense. You know, it is very sad for the Ruto regime, because this Ruto craftiness, this Ruto tactics would have worked at another time in history, would have worked in another season. But in this season, indeed the world is changing so fast. It is difficult to even keep up. And therefore, in this particular season, the approach and the policies of William Samoei Ruto are a non-starter for any president who wants to survive in power. That is just the truth. And there is something else that we should take very careful note of. Many of these powerful Western powers have economic interests in Kenya. And therefore many of them are very determined that peace is sustained in Kenya. That means a peaceful, smooth transition. But this time around we have a problem. According to our constitution, if the president is forced under pressure to resign, it is the deputy president who takes over for the remainder of the term. However, there is a problem there. Do you remember how Kithure Kindiki became deputy president? He became deputy president without the IEBC being in place. Now, you don't need to be a legal expert to know that that one is not possible. And therefore it will be very easy for anybody to challenge the validity of Kindiki taking over as president, in the event that the president resigns. And therefore the presidency of Kithure Kindiki cannot even be envisaged. There are a lot of other factors, including the fact that he does not have the political clout to be able to make that transition stick. Let's be realistic. This is politics. This is politics, and politics is serious. Therefore, the only option that will be left for Kenya, and now it is becoming very obvious, will be some kind of caretaker government to prepare the country for a general election. Okay? And my strong advice to Kenyans is that we must prepare. We need to prepare. We need to brace ourselves for a government that is transitional. A transitional government to take us to a general election. That is what is left. Because as far as William Samoei Ruto's cards are left, they're all finished. There is no other way out. Ruto is well and truly cornered. It doesn't matter what government bloggers are telling you, and you're swallowing hook, line and sinker. It doesn't matter. For those of us who watch Tom and Jerry cartoons, do you remember those scenes where Tom has had the floor taken away from him, usually by Jerry, and then for a few seconds he's still frozen there at the top. There is nothing under him, or there is nothing supporting his weight. And then finally, pop, he falls. But before he falls, those few seconds hanging, that is where the Ruto presidency is now. It is just a matter of time, and the time is very short. There is really no other way of looking at this. There is really no other way of analyzing this. When you look at it closely, you will realize that this is nothing but the truth. You know, it is very interesting that now the chopper accident that killed General Gola has come back into the news. It is interesting because shortly after that incident that shocked Kenyans, I produced a special report, a very detailed one. And now that special report is very relevant for those who want to get an inkling of what may have happened. Okay? It is very detailed. It even has the motive. Right there. The motive for an assassination. Okay? And it is very strongly backed up by very sensitive information I managed to get at that time. And therefore, if you've not taken in this report, now is a good time. Take advantage of our latest offer. You can see details on your screens right now. And the huge advantage is that you'll get all the other special reports I've produced. Very sensitive special reports with a lot of information. You can see some of that information on your screens right now. You'll get that immediately. Pop in your inbox. So please take quick action to avoid disappointment. This offer is only available strictly for the next 24 hours from the moment this video is published on YouTube. So my friends, prepare for a transitional government. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.